Our topic again this morning is AI, CBDC, and the devil's mark. I remember seeing a pamphlet like this. This was from Chick Publications. Anyone remember seeing this before, or remember seeing these? 80s, 90s, and so forth. I remember seeing this. I don't know where it came from, but I remember opening up. This one was on the beast, and of course you know that the beast in Revelation 13 is really like at the epicenter of end time events. And Christians all around the world have various interpretations of who the beast is, what the mark is, and all these different things. But I remember this particular publication in particular. And as you can see it, of course, on the top you have the nefarious 666, the 666 written across the foreheads of men, women, and child, and a person, of course, clergyman, with their hands upon the head of the child. And again, the pamphlets were entitled "The Beast." And inside one of the pieces I read, it said the following, or had the following information in it. It says that with the use of computers, the beast will be able to control every person on the globe. Everyone shall receive my mark in his forehead or in his right hand. Without this mark, you will be unable to buy or sell. And again, this left a very indelible mark upon my mind. It's like, read it, all right, here's a piece to understand that this beast is going to be, you will use computers to control people that they will not be able to buy or sell. Again, I don't know if you saw this particular one or not, and whether you have seen this one or not. How many of you have heard that concept, though, that computers or technology is going to be a vital part in controlling people with the mark of the beast? Now, granted, you've raised your hands and you can certainly identify with that. And if you go back some decades ago, before the advent of computers, that would not have been an idea that people had, right? Like if you could go back in the time machine, you know, the DeLorean time machine, and you go back into the 1700s, the 1800s, when people were reading Revelation, were they thinking about computers? No, because computers were not invented. Were people thinking about technological advancements? Possibly, right? Possibly. But remember that technology really hadn't changed for thousands of years. Like people traveled in the late 17th or 18th century by the way that they traveled thousands of years before. There were no planes, there were no trains, there were no automobiles. So people walked to get to where they had to go, or they used a horse, camel, a beast of burden, a wagon, a boat. That was the method of transportation that was used. And that was the case for thousands of years. So from the time that before that Jesus was on earth, if you go back another 2,000 years to the creation, men were traversing the exact same ways. There was no advent. People weren't moving at the speed of sound. Those things were unheard of. So things were relatively the same. But the concept, of course, that technology would be a vital part in terms of the beast. Whether or not you believed it was a literal mark that was being placed upon people, the idea that is overwhelmingly present in most of Christendom is that the beast will have something to do with technology, something to be able to do with computers, especially as it relates to being able to buy or sell, that it's like a vital part. Of course, we know that there is an increase with it as we look, and we can see our robot buddy with things like cryptocurrencies and such, and the number 666 and all of it wrapping to and meaning at the end of the world, and then kind of coming in through it through various mechanisms. There's also the belief then that behind it all is this Illuminati power, or global elitists who are controlling the world, and that the politicians that are in office, they are just puppets that are being put there, that there's like a real power brokers, but they're behind the scene. And you don't see these folks. They're the ones who are calling the shots. And they're the ones who elect, or not elect, but who appoint who's going to be the president, who will be the vice president, who's going to be this congressman, this senator, this ambassador, this person. And all of them are simply put there at the discretion of this global elite power that rules everything. I'm sure you've heard that before as well. So there's this global group, whether it's the Illuminati, whether it's the Bilderbergers, whether it's the Trilateral Commission, whether it's the Jesuits, they're behind the scene, they control it, and essentially all that happens on the earth is what they've already written out. So so what we're seeing then are all events that they've written out and said, well, this is going to be, and it just unfolds as such. So we certainly see that taking place. And of course, today, people are very much concerned about the evil takeover of artificial intelligence, are the robots. The robots are coming, and they're going to take over the world. Well, let's understand it and unpack it just a little bit. First, when we look at the whole area of artificial intelligence, you think about AI, we'll use as short for artificial intelligence. Really think of it, artificial intelligence, in respect of really using computers to do any task that human beings could do. Like if it's a simple task and a human being could do it, then you can use technology or computers to be able to do that task. That's really, in a nutshell, just a basic definition that we're going to use for artificial intelligence. And then, like a layer below artificial intelligence is what you will see as ML, or machine learning. And what is machine learning? Well, machine learning is just using computers or machines to be able to learn without necessarily being explicitly programmed for the task. So meaning that a machine is able to learn by studying algorithms, by maybe getting a feed in of various things taking place, of movements and developments, chess moves, for example, being able to see those things and then making prediction. That's like machine learning. And then a layer below that, then we have what is called deep learning. And this is where we start using complex algorithms like neural networks to be able to make connections between things. And think of like neural networks as the things that exist in our brains. Like I should have put a slide in, but a line here, and then it's a line here, and a line here. And you have all these various, or circles, I should say. Circles here, and then another set of circles here, and so forth. And they just send out little lines between them, just kind of connecting, making connectors between the two. Those are neural networks, and that terminology is just based off of the replication of the human brain. It's like the brain works by these neurons, and just connecting through to be able to make things happen. And so we look at deep learning as it relates to machines. These are using neural networks to be able to take large amounts of data and be able to make findings from it. Then we move down to a layer below that, which is generative AI, which you will sometimes see as GAI. And in a nutshell, what is GAI, or generative AI? This is just using artificial intelligence to produce new content. So you think of new content a few years ago, the Writers Guild went on strike because they said, hey, we don't want bots to take our jobs. You can go to a computer and say, hey, write me a script for a movie. And the computer can spit it out in a matter of seconds. Now, of course, it would take, if you went to a person and said, write me out a script, that could take weeks, days, months. But you can say to the computer, write me out a script having these pieces in it, and it will spit it out in just a matter of moments. So, of course, they were concerned, well, hey, we will probably lose our jobs if you're going to rely on computers to be able to do the work that we can do. And so that's the concern about GAI, generative AI. Again, there's new content, pictures, music, anything that you can think of. Now, the other side of that is what people are concerned about, are adversarial networks. And that's where you have what you call, or you hear, deep fakes, right? Where you have a computer claiming or impersonating someone. And so you will see maybe a video. If you're online, you'll see a ton of them. It's like they have Oprah Winfrey, and Oprah is promoting a product, but it's not Oprah. Looks like Oprah, sounds like Oprah, but it's not Oprah. What is it's a deep fake. So this is where you start getting into that generative AI. And the last piece then that has really brought a lot of attention is the bottom piece, which is LLMs, which are large language models. And that's the equivalent of what we talk about with programs like Gemini or ChatGPT, where essentially these are able to take text and to make predictions. And all of these have a common piece in that they are really statistical machines. They're making predictions off of pieces that have come in. So now to help you to illustrate, you don't need to know all this. It's not important. The one takeaway I want you to take from this is simply that artificial intelligence is just using a computer to do human-like tasks. That's really what artificial intelligence is. So if you know that, that's like the basic takeaway from all of that as such. Now, let's illustrate what that actually looks like. And think about the top level of just artificial intelligence. You see that all the time. And let me just change this for one moment because I'm going to need it for a piece. You see that all the time. When you open up your iPhone and you say, Siri, what's the temperature going to be today? Or you want to set a reminder and you say, Siri, set a reminder for 10 minutes from now. I'm just making sure Siri doesn't come on my computer and start doing stuff. All right, or you say, Alexa, do such and such. Right? That's a simple task that you would normally do that you're now asking the computer to do. You're typing out a text message and the autocorrect pops up. That's just artificial intelligence. Just making a correction and suggesting, hey, this is what looks like you're trying to say. Do you want to say this? This is artificial intelligence saying that, so we can see it being used in that capacity there. But we can go beyond there, and we move to a layer down. And so you recognize the sound. It's Netflix. So we look at Netflix. Well, what is Netflix relating to? And you talk about, again, it's the whole thing then of using algorithms based on behavior. And so you can see I have a little screenshot of saying, hey, not sure what to watch. Now, how many of you have maybe Netflix or a service as such? Netflix, Amazon, or Hulu Prime, anything like that? Anyone have like Amazon Prime? Yeah, so when you go in, whether you are trying to watch a movie or whether you're trying to order something, it will make suggestions to you, right? And it will say, hey, based off of what you read, you might like this as well. And you say, well, hey, I didn't know that was there, but let me check it out. Or I will say, others who've made this selection have also found this. What are what's happening? Well, the computer's just simply using an algorithm and is making a prediction based off of what your habits are, what you're looking at, and so forth. Is making a prediction that chances are you probably will like this. Now, we talk about areas like Netflix and so forth. Netflix and Amazon, this is not like child's play. They are spending what Netflix is trying to do, certainly keep people engaged. They want to know what kind of content do you want to see. And the year of the strike, the writer's strike in 2022, Netflix spent like $12 billion on content, new content. They were supposed to spend like 19, but the strike took place. And to put that in perspective, that is more than it costs to build SoFi Stadium. SoFi Stadium, where the Chargers play in LA, it's like state of the art. It's a couple of $1 billion to build it. If you want to buy the Chargers, then that would be like $1 billion. So literally, you could buy a football team, build a stadium for them to play in, and still have spare change when it compares to what Netflix is spending there in terms of budget for programming and content, Netflix, Amazon, and so forth. They're spending it. Why are they spending it? Because they want to make sure that we can have subscribers. More subscribers, more opportunity for revenue to be able to grow. And what is it all based off? It's based upon what you watch. So that it's simply put your options will be different from what my options are. And so that we can see something in terms of like machine learning as an example. Then we move to something like deep learning. And deep learning, again, is the opportunity for machines, again, to continue to study algorithms and to learn from it. And so I have a picture I've shown before, but this is a autonomous vehicle. It's driving through the streets of San Francisco. And if you've ever been in San Francisco, recently over the last couple of years, you probably have seen a number of vehicles just driving around. And you could take a ride in a self-driving vehicle. And you say, well, I don't feel safe jumping in the car and letting the car drive me around. Now, statistically, it is much safer for the car to drive you than it is for you to drive yourself. It's just a matter of you getting used to it. But as time goes on, people will become used to it and acclimated to it and jump into a car. Of course, typically speaking, those who are younger are more used to technology, so they have less aversion to it. And you might say, well, that's because they're dumb, they're ignorant, they don't know any better. They're more of a risk taker. And yes, they could be more of a risk taker, but the reality is they understand technology a lot more, have more experiences, because a younger person will have less resistance going online and doing like a transfer, say with a Zelle or a Venmo or PayPal. But if you ask someone who is older, they're like, no, I don't trust it. No. I'm going to write you out a check and you can take the check over and pay. Okay? Because of just the experience level and the comfort level of what a person is used to. But technology has changed. In the 1800s, late 1800s, when elevators and so forth came out, of course, safety was not the same as it is, but you would always have an operator. You know, you could shut the door, and you would they would make sure that the floor is stopped on the appropriate floor and so forth. But as technology continued to advance, we don't have elevator operators now. But you get in elevators pretty comfortably and hit it, we're going to the 100th floor, and you know, and away you go, right? Just what technology is changing and such. Now, the other example that we see is what we call GAI, our generative AI, rather. And the concern, of course, is deep fake. So I just have a picture here, and before I can show it, there is a form that you must sign because I cannot reveal identity. So after you see this as like an NDA, I can show it if you will agree to the NDA. You will agree to the NDA? NDA is like a non-disclosure agreement? Okay, all right.
I believe this is your floor.
So sometimes when I'm not here, I may have to be helping to save the world. So some of you may can't tell, but you may notice something about the face there. What's that? Any similarity in the face? Yeah. That's me. Yeah, that's me. So I was like, okay, well, how do you do that? And so that's like the concern that people have with AI. And I could change it and have my voice on it, but you know, that's not the point. The point is, all right, you're able to make it there. Now, the last piece we talked about are large language models, things like ChatGPT and such. And so you may go in, and I'm not going to go through this whole example, but I just typed in something like I am preparing an impossible veggie burger, and I want like a side with it and so forth. And I want it to act like an Iron Chef. Give me some type of recommendation. And so type in, this is what I want. And of course, go ahead and, well, my typing is slow, probably should have sped it up. What I want, and of course, it will give me a recommendation bringing forth. And what is it doing? All it's doing is just making predictions there, okay? So this is really what we're talking about when we talk about artificial intelligence and such. And now we have to make that bridge to see, well, how does it tie into the end? But I wanted to just explain it, and I will just let this run for a second so you may be able to see it. All right, so here is my recommendation. I asked for a salad, actually, at the beginning. So chard, citrus, and fennel. And then it gave me a champagne citrus vinaigrette. And then some ideas of how to present the plate, right, to give it some, like the Iron Chef flair, to make it look a certain way. It gave me ideas there, like drizzling it and how I can make the avocado, fan it out, and so forth. And then I asked, all right, I'd like to have some type of mocktail to be able to go along with that. So what would I be able to introduce for it? And so I have a couple of recipes, a cucumber, basil sparkler, or a hibiscus ginger spritz. So you get the idea. Again, all that stuff in terms of just artificial technology, just computer learning. And so, and by this, by the way, when we talk about AI, you can talk about it being supervised learning or unsupervised learning. And one of them is that you are supervising the learning, saying, here's a picture of a dog, and you feed it 1,000 pictures of a dog so they can recognize a dog. Or you can do unsupervised, where you show it pictures and it determines what it is. But of course, you would seek to look later on to make sure, of course, it is coming with the right conclusion. Now, with most forms that we're able to interact in, there's some things that's called like a black box, where they'll say, well, hey, we don't know how it came to this conclusion. And that's because we didn't, it's not something we programmed, and therefore we were able to make it come to this conclusion. So we can't see the outcome. We don't know how it came there, but we know it made some type of predictions and so forth. So the concern, of course, that generally people will have with artificial intelligence is it's extremely smart. As I have in the polymaths, the Einsteins of the world, the Edisons, your Da Vinci's, just like all rolled into one and at your disposal. To be able to respond just for milliseconds. Able to work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, doesn't need to take a break. And the great thing about it is that it is fluent in every language. So you can talk to it in any language it understands, it's able to respond back. And the cost for it is like $20 a month for a plan, or you can do some free plans as such. So people are concerned and say, well, hey, this will certainly take away our jobs, but more importantly, it will take away our freedoms, because the computers will continue to get stronger and stronger and will become more of an adversary for us. And these will be used to take over the world. So I want to bring it back to our question that we must ask ourselves is, well, how does this fit within the basic framework of Revelation? So does Revelation then speak forth of a rise of technology to take over the world? That is a question. So we can see, like, a lot of good can be done from that type of technology, right? Yes. But we could also have some bad actors who would seek to do some bad things as well. But the question that we need to come back and ask ourselves, though, is how does this fit within the basic framework of Revelation? So does Revelation then talk about technology or speak of it that it would be a part of being able to bring about the end times? And the answer is no, it does not. So if we go from a premise then, so we have to basically, it's like one or two choices that we say. If we say that it does speak against, or does foretell, or does warn about technology, then we must be on the lookout for what? Technology. If it doesn't speak about technology, then that means that technology is not a concern, not meaning that we should not be concerned about how it's used and so forth. That's not what I'm talking about. But in the context of prophecy, if it is not identified in Revelation, then it becomes a moot point. If it is identified, then it would be something to be alarmed of. So going back again to the first slide that we showed, when they said that the mark of the beast would be done by a computer, if you believe that, and if you see all the things taking place today, would that not cause you concern? Absolutely it would. Because fundamentally, you have said, you've put yourself in the corner saying technology is going to be used to implement the mark of the beast. And so now, because we're able to see so many different things taking place with technology, then that will cause concern. But now, the flip side of the coin is, if technology is not a part of that basic framework of Revelation, then is that something to be concerned about in that extent? The answer would be no. So let's switch over to CBDC then. Who can name some of the ways, methods of payment that are available today that we have? Just offhand.
Online banking.
Okay. All right. Oh, yeah, online banking. But what about payment? Like, what's a method of payment?
Credit.
All right, you have
cards.
Zelle. All right, I was expecting that first one. Credit cards. You can do credit cards. Another form of payment. Oh, boom. Excellent. Cash. Cash is another form of payment. What about another form of payment?
Checks.
Checks. Boom. There are checks. Another form of payment. Doing pretty good. 3 for 3 so far. What's another form of payment that you can use?
Cryptocurrency.
Debit card. Oh, excellent. So we're like 4 for 4 debit cards. You can use that as a form of payment. What's another form of payment that you can use?
Cryptocurrency.
Okay. All right. We said go over cover credit card. What's another form of payment? Well, you can do the your wallet, your tap to pay, and so forth. But this is like old school. So bonus points, money orders. You can use money orders. Go buy you a money order. Or you can use a cashier's check, a form of payment. And here's one that you probably won't get, so I'll just give it to you. You can barter. These are all forms of payment, okay? All forms of payment. Now, as it relates to America and the use of payments and so forth, we can see that, according to a study done by the Federal Reserve Bank of Atlanta, 31% of payments in the United States was in the form of credit, 29% in the form of debit cards, 18% cash, then 13% ACH, 3% check, 8% other, and then 1% mobile payment apps. Like, again, that's like your tap to pay and so forth as such. So what does it tell us? It tells us that there's a variety of ways that people like to pay in America. But the big portions in terms of payment actually come through credit, then debit, then cash, and then ACH, automatic clearing houses. And that's essentially where transactions are sent in, and then the clearinghouse makes sure it's okay that we receive the money, and hold it, and then they release it, and so forth. So those are the primary forms of payment. The most popular forms of payment that are used as of 2024. Okay, and so in doing so and in seeing them, you know that, all right, things change. CBDC, what is it? Well, CBDC stands for Central Bank Digital Currency. That's what it represents. And America has a central bank. Most nations, developed nations, have a central bank. So what is the role of the central bank? Amongst many things, the central bank does not print money. The mint, or the Feds, are the one who prints money. The central bank just helps in terms of our establishing monetary practices and so forth with other central banks around the world in terms of inflation and so forth. Now, what about currency? Actually, about payment, what about currency? This is a form of currency that America previously had. It's a piece of paper with a note on it that says this indented bill of 20 shillings due from the Massachusetts colony. So a piece of paper was the payment. What about currency today? What are the forms of currency in the U.S.? Who can name a form of currency?
Cryptocurrency.
Who can a form of currency that's accepted in the U.S.? Cash. What's another form of currency that's established and accepted in the U.S.? Okay. Is gold accepted in the U.S.?
Gold
Is
and
a form of
silver.
currency.
Gold, silver, and copper.
Okay, those are precious metals, but are they accepted as a form of currency in the U.S.? No. So what's another form of currency that's accepted in the U.S.? I'll give it to you. Coins, right? So close. And then when you talk about, all right, you're the coins. Now, what's the difference between currency and payment? Currency, think of it just as the medium, and the payment is just like the method of paying, okay? The currency is the medium, and in our currency we have different notes, like a $2 bill, $1 bill, 5, 10, and so forth. Those are different notes, the currency is such. Now in terms of payments, you can go, I can accept any type of payment that I choose to accept for said services, right? So you could go, imagine going to Target. They rung up your order, your bill, and the cashier says it's going to be $95.55. You take out a block of gold and you drop it down, and you say that should cover it. What are they going to say? But I thought gold was money. It is not an accepted form of payment, right? So they say, hey, well, we appreciate that, but we can't accept that. Now, what if you had 9,000 pennies that you put down? They probably would say, well, we're not going to take 9,000 pennies, but it is a form of payment, okay? So the point we're just trying to establish is that currency and payment are different. So now let's tie it back in, just make a bridge. So stay with me as we talk about then what CBDC is, okay? What central bank digital currency is that the idea that the central bank will have a digital currency. So just the same as we have, so the only type of currency that we have in the U.S. are this paper currency, and we have coins, okay? There are different forms of payment that are accepted because we talked about it. You have credit card, you have debit card, you have check, and so forth. But those are not currency. Those are just forms of payment. Bartering as well, just a form of payment. But the currency that is exchanged are U.S. notes. So you typically cannot go into a place of business here and give them, say, a peso. Because they will say, is a peso currency? Yes. But it is not an accepted form of payment in America. Now you can go to Mexico and they can say it'll be $2 and you can put down a dollar bill and they will take it. Because it's an acceptable form of payment, okay? It's a valid currency, but it's an acceptable form of payment. So what is CBDC? Well, CBDC then is the idea that instead of using physical dollars or coins, that we could use digital dollars as such, okay? We'll use digital currency as such. So this is not Venmo, this is not PayPal, this is not Zelle. It's essentially saying that in addition to having physical currency, we will have digital currency as well, okay? Hopefully that makes sense. I'm not talking about the method of payment, I'm not talking about tap to pay, but just as you have like a dollar bill with Washington on it, then you will have also digital currency that could be used as well. Now there are different advantages for that, and there's some disadvantages as well, or some areas to be concerned about with that, but fundamentally that's what that is. So in September the president has signed forth a directive that will state that those who are receive Social Security payments are going to start receiving their checks electronically. All right, so in September, that change will take place. And it was something that was done previously, but again, we will see it happening. Now, what does it state? It's going to affect about 500, I think it's like 500,000 Americans who do not currently have direct deposit. So they're saying we're not going to send out paper checks anymore. And the reason why they don't want to send out paper checks anymore is because, number one, have you tried to mail something recently? Anyone gone to the post office and mail something? Well, maybe that's one of the reasons why the post office is such dire straits. We don't use stuff to mail too much anymore, right? It's like, you don't need it. But I had to go mail something some months ago. And I needed a stamp. And you guess how much the stamp was? It's like 78 cents. Like 78 cents for a stamp? Are you kidding me? And then I started thinking, I like to say old folks think. I remember when the stamp was 19 cents. With 78 cents, I could go as a kid and buy a stamp, get me a little Debbie, a little thing of soda to drink, a Slim Jim, a cucumber, a loaf of bread, and still have 10 cents left over. Didn't think I would live to see the day in which I would have my own story, but yes, I do have my story. 78 cents to mail. So if you think that's 78 cents then, and the government has to send out like 500,000 checks every single month, then just quick multiply 500,000 times 78 cents. You can start saying, okay, that's pretty costly. In addition, paper checks are one of the ways, one of the most easiest used forms of theft. All thieves need to do is just grab the check, go in, present themselves as you, cash it, and be off. Or they can wash off the ink and change the dollar amount, and to be able to put in a different dollar amount and so forth. So it's right for crime. Some aspiring individuals in the wrong way may use it for such. So the government said, hey, we're going to change it. So we're going to use direct deposit, or we're going to use a debit card. We're going to give a debit card loaded on there, and the funds are there. So the advantage for you is quicker cash, easier access, less time worrying about lost checks. Advantage for us, lower costs and so forth, because direct deposit is virtually nil in terms of like costs as compared to actually sending out physical checks and such. So that is what is taking place in September. Now, to our piece in terms of like this digital currency, because many say, well, hold it, the digital currency is important for the government, or in particular, not the government, but for the government to control its citizens, or for the beast power of revelation to control people that they can't buy or sell. So if you have people locked into a digital currency, then they cannot buy anything. Because in order for a digital currency to work, you have to have technology, right, to be able to make it work, correct? So if you have your tap to pay and you go in to pay and your phone is dead, you could have $100 million. But if you don't have like a physical card or any other type of cash, even though you have more than enough, you can't complete the transaction, right? That is correct. So people then say, well, the beast power is going to use the governments to set up a net where people cannot buy or sell by being able to control through a digital currency. And by the way, a digital currency, America doesn't currently have a digital currency. Now you can buy like crypto. You hear of crypto, Bitcoin, and so forth. Those are currencies, but they're just not currencies that are accepted by the U.S. Okay, and in fact, even most banks will not accept that as a quote, as a payment, or not as a payment, but as a currency as such. Okay, you have to cash it out into whatever currency that you're in terms of the country, and then be able to conduct business as such. So CBDC then. This is from the White House, January 23rd, 2025, shortly after President Trump took office. Actually, he would be 3 days after the president took office. So this is what his position was on CBDC. He signed an executive order that would take measures to protect Americans from the risk of central bank digital currencies, which threaten the stability of the financial system, individual privacy, and the sovereignty of the United States, including by prohibiting the establishment, issuance, circulation, and use of a CBDC within the jurisdiction of the U.S. Now, I don't agree with everything that is stated there, but I'm just reporting the facts of what is stated. Now, there are certain inherent dangers in there, yes. And even you talk about privacy, one of the concerns, of course, well, how can we keep your transactions private? And that's, and it could easily be done, but the question is, well, will the government know what you are spending? Well, the objective is no, not to know what you're spending, but to be able to provide an alternative currency if you so chose to do so. The same page states the following in reference to CBDC. This is Section C, that the central bank digital currency means a form of digital money or monetary value denominated in the national unit of account that is direct liability of the central bank. But he signed to revoke Executive Order 14067 and Department of the Treasury Framework of July 7, 2022, Executive Order 14067 of March 9, 2022, ensuring responsible development of digital assets is hereby revoked. So in other terms, or layman's terms, President Biden had signed an executive order to move forward with CBDC, and President Trump said, no, pump the brakes, don't want America to be involved in CBDC. Okay, so that's what these two things are saying. 2022, that was Joe Biden. 2025 is Donald Trump, and he's saying that no, we are not going to move forward with digital currency. Now, so what does that mean then? Will America move forward with digital currency? So this is from Bloomberg, and this is as of 3 years ago. And what they're showing are the central banks in all around the world who are actively or in whatever degrees involved in digital currency. So you can notice on the map, the CBDC is already being issued. You can see that there are 3 places that are actually using digital currency: Bahamas, Jamaica, and Nigeria. They're already using digital currency. They've been using it for a couple of years. Then the countries in our lavender plan to issue CBDC. And of course, you can see India, China, various countries in the South Pacific, and so forth. Now, of course, America would be concerned, and many economists in America would be concerned, and say, look, if America was the strongest financial empire, if we're not like the first mover, we're giving that place to over to China. Then you can see again the countries who are actively exploring CBDC feasibility, and you can see a vast portion of the world, various countries in Latin America, Canada, throughout Europe and such. Then here is America conducting early research and experiments. And so America, Australia, and some other countries are conducting experiments that, okay, we want to see how this will work, what it will look like, and so forth. So what am I sharing that for? I'm bringing it forward to say, hey, this is how CBDC works. So the details have to be worked out. But the basic function is it will be a digital currency that does not replace the dollar bill or current notes of currency, but just in addition to. All right, okay, so there's not a replacement, but just a supplement in terms of a payment. Just as you have physical cash or coins, then you would also have digital cash as well. So, but wait a minute, I can hear you saying, but if you have digital currency, can't that make it where you can't buy or sell? So, if we accept that proposition, that is the perspective of how CBDC will be able to be used, then we would have to ask ourselves, well, what does having electricity mean? We also should ask ourselves and consider, well, what about having running water? What does that mean? Because we laud these as helpful for us to be able to live the lives that we are accustomed to living. But if having electricity, the opposite means you don't have electricity. If having running water, the opposite means that someone can cut that water off. Then what would the solution be? Well, the solution would be then is that one would have to live off the grid. Because if you have electricity, that could be shut off. It's like, okay, you won't do what we say do, or it's going to be 107 degrees the next 4 days. We'll see how you can handle that. It's going to be, 45 degrees a night. Let's say you can handle that. What about if you don't have any water? We can shut all those things off. Well, then the natural response would be then, well, in order to be able to minimize that happening, we need to live off the grid. Because again, after all, we must be concerned about the evil technology coming. So we have just the choice to make and to decide. Do we go off the grid and have a tranquil life, or do we go down the road with evil technology? I like to rephrase it, though, because Revelation isn't about evil technology or technology. Revelation, as the rest of the Bible, is about two decisions: heaven or hell. It's not about being on the grid or being off the grid or so forth. It is about heaven or hell. So when we think about CBDC, back to the same question, well then, how does this fit within the basic framework of Revelation? And is Revelation warning or talking about that there would be some type of digital currency that would be able to be shut off? The answer again is no. That is not what Revelation suggests. We can see a few pieces that remind us of markets and pricing and so forth unto the end. In Luke 17 to verse 28, Jesus says that they ate and they drank, they bought and they sold until what happened? And to Noah and his family went into the ark, until Lot and his family left Sodom and Gomorrah. In other words, they continued to be able to buy and sell. There was no issue there. Revelation chapter 13 and Revelation 18, in verse 3 says, the merchants of the earth, they have waxed rich through the abundance of her delicacies. So the merchants of the earth are continuing to buy and sell all the way into the time of the end of all things. And this is why they begin to weep and howl, because sudden destruction has come upon them. In Revelation 18 and verse 11, it's like a judgment happens immediately, and now no one is able to buy their merchandise. Is it because the computers collapse and they can't have any control? No. It's that no one is interested in buying these things. The destruction that is coming upon the world has put men in a state that they're not concerned of consumerism anymore. They're concerned about their eternal and heavier or weightier matters as such. And so no man is interested in buying. No man is interested in selling. They're weeping over the conditions. The merchants of the earth are who are rich through what she has sold. The great men of the earth, again, they are crying over the conflagration of all those things in the great day. Daniel 11:43 says that he, meaning the king of the north, is going to have power over all the treasures of gold and over silver. Again, not so much like literally silver and gold, but having an affair, say-so, in what a man is able to buy or cannot buy. How? Because those that do not have the mark will not be able to buy or sell. I want to emphasize that this, again, is placed upon religious allegiance and not technology. We see that, again, clearly evidenced by a couple of passages in Revelation 13, 16 through 17. It's about no man buying or selling unless you worship a certain way. Daniel chapter 3, we saw the image and decree that was put forth. It was a prayer band. Please note that it was enforced by law and by social pressure, have nothing to do with technology. Pressure was brought about to be able to bring those pieces in. Revelation 7, God's seal, again, it's symbolic. It's not a physical, it's not a digital chip or anything of that nature. And again, by parallel, the mark of the beast, again, is about allegiance. It's not talking about a medium. It's not a warning against a particular medium or technology. And then lastly, in Revelation chapter 18, we see the same thing. The global trade continues into judgment. The powers of earth, they're being used as a lever. So Revelation then reminds us then of a few pieces coming in. And please notice again that with it, in some of these instances, you can see a person not being able to buy or sell. How will that be done? We don't know. But it will not be from a, quote, a digital, we have digital currency, we're going to just shut it off, because again, you have different forms of payment that are accepted, that we talked about, that can be used to buy and to sell, whether it's bartering. You even have, unfortunately, people giving of their bodies to be able to buy different things or sell different things. It happens all the time in terms of prostitution. So the whole notion of buying, sell is not about a method or a medium of a payment, or technology, but it is really dealing with the system of allegiance. So that those who will be true to God will somehow be branded so that you are unable to buy or sell. So whether that is a, quote, a social order or social construct, or a person will say, hey, well, don't take this from them. This person doesn't have this, don't go along with it. Because again, it's not an outward mark of this 666. It's not a mark or anything that's in the hand or in the forehead, but some way of being able to demonstrably create so that you are unable to buy and that you are unable to sell. What that looks like, again, it will be speculation, okay? But what we do know, it is not in the sense of technology, because if it was technology, then it would be some type of warning from Revelation to avoid it. And again, if we say technology, the only way to avoid it then is to get off the grid, so to speak. And as a result, many people have chosen just that. Because they look at it through that lens, the response is, let me get off the grid now. So I'm going to go over here, and I'm going to set this up, and then going to get my running water. This is going to go through this, and it's cool to have running water. I'm not knocking that. Please don't misunderstand. But their response is, we're going to go off the grid. We're going to get battery powered this. We don't have to. We're going to use walkie-talkies. We're not going to use this and that. And let me again be clear. Even the best laid plans of mice and men. If you're going to go, quote, get off the grid, the fallacy of it, do you not pay property taxes? If you have to buy property, do you not have to register the property? So in other words, you're creating a paper trail. If the whole idea, when people are truly off the grid, these are the folks who are like military grade or survivalists who they're in town today, and all of a sudden it's like boom, they're gone. No one knows where they are. All right, but if you're going into I need to buy me 5 acres, and here's my information, and I need to have this done and so forth. The whole notion that really people talk about being off the grid in this context in Revelation is that you're trying to be invisible. It is impossible to be able to do so. The alternative is that we put our faith and our confidence in God, recognizing again that it's not about technology, but it is about falling and worshiping an apostate system versus worshiping Jesus and Him alone. If you dwell upon those aspects in terms of a system, Luke 11:21 says that men's hearts, they failed them for fear. Now, I used to think that this was primarily talking about many of the wicked, and that is true. But if you look at the text, it says that men's hearts failed them for fear, for looking for those things which are coming on the earth, for the powers of heaven shall be shaken. There are many believers who are just overwhelmed. It's like out of their mind because they're concerned about this. They read this and they read it wrong. So then they look and say, well, look, the technology, this AI is doing this. There's no money is going to be available after September. And they're total chaos. Their hearts are failing them for what are those things that are coming over the world. In Maranatha 28, it says, do not talk of your inefficiency and of your defects. When despair would seem to be sweeping over your soul, look to Jesus, saying that he lives to make intercession for me. Forget the things that are behind and believe the promise that I will come to you and abide with you. It is your privilege to trust in the love of Jesus for salvation in the fullest and the surest and the noblest manner, to say, he loves me, he receives me, I trust him, for he gave his life for me. I share this because in the last conflict, you will know that you can trust Jesus. He loves you, and he's given his life for you. You have no reason to fear, but only to trust and to believe and to abide in him. I have gone over the time that I intended, but I was able to cover what I had so desired. And I do want to open up and give an opportunity if there are any questions or comments, maybe 10 minutes, maybe tops. And once that is done, for the opportunity for our music from the Maranatha Fijian choir.
Can you go back to the markets, prices, and wealth until the end?
Okay. All right, so I'm there, and whoops, sorry. I'll get it back. While that's coming up, any other questions? Sorry about that. Here we go. Yes. Oh, and we just tried to get a mic just for.
I was going to say, I remember the elderly mentioning. I remember the elderly mentioning that you used to be able to use stamps. You know, the stamps that you purchased from the post office, you were able to use those as payment, you know, years ago, because they had the blue stamps and the green stamps and things like that. And, when I was coming up, you know, they were ending it. But I remember them mentioning stuff like that what they were able to do. You couldn't get away with nothing like that now, you know, to do anything like that. So it's just interesting listening to you talk, how things have changed, you know, had came up and stuff.
Thank you. I have to look it up. I'm not familiar with it. There's a lot I'm not familiar with there. All right. Any other? Yes. No. No. I'm too young for that. Sorry. Oh, you know, I'm sorry. You have to just a microphone just for the benefit of. Oh, okay. All right.
Hello? Oh, okay. So I'm not sure what I was hearing in the room, but I know you probably said it, but can you just repeat it if you did? You was talking about people going off the grid, I'm assuming, in the country. And I think you mentioned property taxes. Like, you're off the grid, but how do you pay the property taxes and all that, like, during the market of beasts?
Oh, yeah, well, okay. Well, my point of bringing that up, and I should have been clearer, so my apologies, was saying that those who suggest then that, you know, if you go down the road, you're saying, okay, it was technology, all these pieces and components, and so everything that happens is, every advancement in technology becomes a step forward toward the mark of the beast, is ultimately what ends up happening. Like every advanced step in technology becomes a step toward the beast power. And so the counter balance or the counter argument then is, in order to be able to avoid being a part of that system, is then you become completely, anti such technology, and you become off the grid. And so my point there is that people who say they're off the grid are not undiscoverable. And I should have just been clear in saying that, because you go in, you're going to have to buy the land, get the contractors out there and so forth. So you're having all this human interaction and a paper trail that you're creating in the county courthouse, that you bought this property and so forth. And so if I'm the persecutor, and I know that Jim Smith is not worshiping the way we want, I need to go find, quote, Jim Smith. So I have your name, your address, and so forth. Like when I was growing up, people used to say it was like that was part of, when you went to the hospital. I don't know if anyone went to the hospital, they would say, like, what is your religious preference? And so forth. And people are like, well, yeah, they're going to use that to be able to hunt people down, And so everything became basically some underhand or nefarious purpose, an ulterior motive for everything. And so if you're, conducting business, and you're off the grid, even off the grid, you still have to pay property taxes. So whether you own the property free and clear, that's regardless, you always pay property taxes. That's how one of the ways that the county makes money, because you pay that, tax. So so you would still be responsible for that. But what we in Matthew 24, as it talks about the abomination to make it desolate and so forth, it gives us a time in which, okay, now you are moving from, quote unquote, the city to the country, and then even from the country just to the rocks and to the mountains, because the idea of scripture sharing is that God's saints will be everywhere at the end of time when He comes, but in particular we see a number who have fled to the rocks and to the mountains for protection. All right, and of course the point of going to the rocks and to the mountains is just like will be less populous than if you were in a city. It's easier to hide in rugged terrain than being inside of a city. And so when you start seeing, especially people in America, sometimes they're on the run, and if they have any wilderness survival, they would use that. They'll go to the wilderness because it's harder to track people in the wilderness than it is in the city. In the city, it's like, 100 people could see you within a matter of moments. But if you out in the middle of nowhere, in no man's land, people have no idea, no clue. So I'm not disparaging country living. I am simply stating that many people are then choosing country living as the antithesis to technology. They see technology as the evil, and a way for me to be able to avoid it is to be over here. But I'm saying that even over here, you still left that digital thumbprint, okay? Because you have to buy the land, you have to buy the house, you have to make all these things, and so there's, if I'm trying to quote find you, I'm still able to find you. So sorry, but that was what I was seeking to say.
In Fiji, as long as you're in the city limits, you pay property tax. When you go out in the country, no property tax.
Oh, that's beautiful. I wish I would do that here. Oh, beautiful. But you would have to still like lay claim to the land. I mean, there would be a title, right? So even with titles, like, all right, there's that, quote, that paper trail. So I'm not saying like you get a place and people, make some fictitious name or something like that. I'm not saying that. I'm just simply saying that I want to challenge the illusion that people have that you can just disappear into the sunset. You really can't just disappear into the shadows unless you just literally just walk away from everything and assume a different identity, or just go, somewhere out into the middle of nowhere. All right, Brother Warrington.
So, so let me see if I got it right, that where it says that no man might buy or sell save he that had the mark or the name of the beast or the number of his name. You're saying there's no definite kind of understanding or explanation as to how that's going to come about.
That's correct.
So, you don't want to speculate on that. But then when concerning the mark of the beast, okay, the mark says not through technology. He said it won't be something like people say a physical mark on the head or something with technology. But I've always heard that the mark of the seal of God then was the Sabbath, and that the issue will be at stake will be because it's an issue of worship. The mark of the beast has to do with worship, like it says, who will not worship the image. So the issue that has to do here with worship, and I've always heard that the seal of God is the name is the Lord, the title is the creator, and the territory is heaven and earth, so that there's a seal in the seal of God. And those who recognize that all of the seal is caught up in the idea of the Sabbath, the fourth commandment. So, and that will that then say that whatever this is, that the issue behind it will not be technology, but that it will be something that will have something to do with worship on the Sabbath versus some type of global imposition of Sunday worship, and that it may come through social pressure or ostracism of a group of people as they're identified and make me difficult for, it might not be like, might not, but no man might buy or sell that. In other words, that's kind of like make it difficult for you to buy or sell. And so do you see this as having something to do with the Sabbath? But I just want to ask this, just please keep that in mind, but I just want to make this comment. The Lord said that your bread and water be sure. So I don't think that, those who have faith and trust in God will have to worry about what some man will sell them or buy them, or they have to buy or sell, because God is your provider, and he'll see that you have whatever it is that you need, your brother. And, it's God, all good gifts come from God. So, if you are living in close proximity to the Lord, you don't have to worry about, because God is the provider of all things. So that really wouldn't be any issue because he's able to provide for your needs. But do you see that this will be centered around the question of Sunday worship versus Sabbath worship?
Yeah, I do. I do. And I think, again, as you stated, my point is, again, what is a focal point here? Is an issue technology, or is it an issue of worship? And the issues of worship. And particularly, you talk the Sabbath versus Sunday worship, and enacted and enforced by law. And so, of course, there are threats and fines and imprisonments and so forth that are used to try to be able to coerce people. And again, one of those ultimately say, hey, you will not be able to buy or sell. We're going to prohibit you from being able to buy or sell. And again, how that mechanism piece may look, don't know. And so it'd be futile to run down the road with it, but many are trying to go down that road, and they're running down the road, and they're making really bad choices and decisions, and ultimately painting themselves into a corner of which it is not justified. And as you said, ultimately, the reason why the saints need not worry is that God has said, your bread and water will be short. Now, that doesn't mean, of course, you eating 3 squares a day, but I can trust him to provide and to take care of me. And also with the faith of the patriarch, I said, well, whether I get or whether I don't get, I'm going to be his servant, and he will bless and keep his own.
Thank you.
All right. I think that is everything. So with that, we're going to go to the choir. I don't know the song.
All right, we now invite the Fijian choir to come on, the Maranatha Fijian choir to come on back up to the front and sing "In the Shelter of His Arms" as our closing hymn, our closing song, sorry.
When my soul was disturbed in sorrow, and my heart was burdened with sin,
So if you enjoyed that, the next question you're probably asking is, well, when is the next time? When's the next time that the Maranatha Fijian choir will be blessing us? I guess you have to stay tuned because I don't have an answer. But hopefully sometime soon. Thank you again so much for ministering to us with your voices, your praise. Thank you so much. It was a blessing. Let us have our closing prayer. Father in heaven, thank you again for this time we've been able to have in worship. Thank you for reminding us that you are always with us, even through the troublous times. Thank you again for the promises of your word, that you will sustain us, that our bread and our waters provisions are taken care of. You have said that not a sparrow will fall to the ground, but that your Father takes notice of it, and even the very hairs of our head are numbered. And so intricately are you connected with all of our details and our goings and comings. Help us to trust you and not to be fearful of the times in which we live in, nor of the days ahead, but knowing that the future is in your hands, that our lives are in your control, that you will protect, you will deliver, you will intervene in our behalf, and you are always by our side, never leaving us nor forsaking us. And even greater still, the promise that you've given in your word, greater is he that is in us and he that is in the world. So I pray that you may keep us, strengthen us where our faith is weak, and help us to look away from ourselves and look more and more into even more so into the perfect day when we'll gather at Mount Zion with that innumerable company, where we sing forth the praises of deliverance that you've brought us forth, that we've been victorious over the beast, over his image and over his mark, and we're able to stand upon the sea of glass before your throne and in your presence forever, we ask in Jesus' name. Amen.